Hi, and welcome to a new video of this MOOC. In this video we are going to start the implementation of our tic-tac-toe simple page application. The first step is to add the roots to our tic-tac-toe game in order to allow three pages: the home page, the page for starting a new game, and the page for continuing an already started game. In order to do that, the first thing we have to do is to create a new component that will render the index page. And we have called it index component. Then I'm going to configure the roots in order to get the URL from the navigation bar and to render one on another component depending on it. The roots I'm going to configure are the ones you can see in this slide. We have the root for the index URL, in which we will render the index component, and that will correspond to the home button in the navigation bar. Then we will have the new path, the root for the path new, that will render the game component, and that will correspond to the new game button in the navigation bar. Then we will have the path continue that will render again the game component, but in this case we will use the data parameter in order to pass an extra attribute to the game component. Okay? In game component, of course, we will have to check if this parameter continue is set to true or not, and depending on it, getting an empty board or rendering an already started game and putting the state in the board. Okay. Finally, I have here another path in order to get requests to the root of the application and redirecting them to the index. Okay, so the first thing then I have to do in order to start this task is to create the new component, the index component. With the command line interface tool, I put here ng generate component index. Okay, and this will create a new component called index. This is outside the game module because this is not included in the game logic we need. I'm going now to start the server in order to have it already started, and as you can see here, I have the new component, the index component, and I'm going to put here a welcome message for the users. Okay, so I have here a div in which I'm going to put you can start or hello. Hello, you can start a new game or load an already started one. Okay, this is just an example of a message. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is to include the roots array when we have just seen in the slides in the application module. Okay, so I'm going to include here the array you have seen before, and of course I have to include here or import here the index component and also the game component. Okay, so I'm going to import here the game component that in this case is in game folder, game component, because it's inside the game module and then the game component. And finally, I have to include here in the imports array the roots module in order to load the roots. So the first thing I have to do is to import the modules for managing roots, that are the router module, the router module and the roots object from the corresponding Angular library, that in this case is Angular roots library. Okay, and with this, Angular router. And with this, the last thing I have to do is to include the application roots here in the list of imports. Okay, so I have to put here router module dot for root and the application routers. Okay. Of course, this is a thing you can check in the documentation of the MOOC. Okay, and with this we have already the routes created for our navigation bar. Now I'm going to modify the application component template in order to include the navigation bar. I will also include here the router outlet tag where the corresponding template will be included. Okay, so I'm going to the application component template in order to include the navigation bar. So as you can see here right now, it is by default render the game component, but we have to modify this, included the navigation bar. If you remember, the format for the links when using router links is, so I'm going to include here 3, and I will put here the different paths. I have the index path that will correspond to the home button. I will have the new path that corresponds to new game, and I also have the path for continuing an already started game, that is continue, and the button is named also continue. I will include here after this the router outlet tag, in which Angular will render the template of the corresponding component. If I go now to the application, as you can see here, I have the navigation bar, and clicking on the different options, you can see how the URL in the navigation bar changes to index, new, and continue, and depending on it, Angular is rendering one view or the other. By now, the new game and the continue links are doing the same, so the thing we have to do now is to modify game component in order to, depending on the parameter in data, will load a new game or continue an already started game. Okay, so let's do it. I'm going to modify the game component to check if the value included in the data for the activated route includes the option continue to true or not, and depending on this, I will load a new game calling to the reset method of the state service, or I will include a fixed saved game by the moment. I will include it in memory in order to continue an already started game. Okay, so let's go to the game component logic, and let's import here the things we need in order to do or to implement this feature. We need the first thing, the activated route object from Angular router, and I will need also the state service. Okay, import state service in order to update the service depending on the option. Okay, state service, I will include here also the state interface because we will need it later, from the state service that, as you can see here, is in the previous folder. Okay, so this is state.service. Okay, so now in the constructor I can inject both things. So I have the current activated route, and I will also inject the state service that is of type state service. Now I'm going to check from the current route the value of course the current value so I'm going to use the snapshot, the current value of the data object, and specifically of the continue parameter. So if this is set to true, I'm going to put here in the state service a new state that by the moment is one I have here in the clipboard, that is this one, for instance, including the turn of player 0, and here a fixed set of values that we will modify the current state of the application. If not, if the value of this parameter continue is false, I will reset the state of the application. Okay, remember that this parameter, the data continue parameter, is included here when I click or when I go to the continue path in the application. Okay, so let's see how the application is right now. And as you can see here, I have the home welcome message, the new game that includes a default board, an empty board. And if I click here on continue game, as you can see here, Angular renders this set of values I have included. Okay, so when I click on new game, the board is empty. When I click on continue, I'm checking this continue parameter and rendering the set of values I have included in the interface. Okay, so that's all for this video. We have already implemented the routes functionality in our simple page application. See you in the next video. Bye.